I'll just get started, and it's going to be a fairly short meeting. And I already told Elena, like, hey, there's just the four of us here, so we can keep this interactive as well. So whenever you have any questions, like, just drop them in the chat if you would, and I'll just get to those questions by the end. It should be 15, maybe 20 minutes. Then we can go through some questions. And because there's only a couple of us, you can ask like really specific questions like, hey, my campaign looks like this, or my client looks like that, or anything. And then we can just look at all those individually. That's no issue at all. So have you, I'll share my screen. Let me see. Have you tried out the no touch lines already, or where are you in your, your line journey pretty much?
So for me, I have not. I haven't used your service. I've used another service that generates my icebreaker line.
Sure.
It was hit or miss. One of the reasons why I wanted to come here was because I was curious to see how just how I could generate enough lines in a quick amount of time that would actually get me some conversions. And so that's kind of where my mind is sort of wrapped around.
Exactly. All right. And just out of curiosity, which other tool were you trying out? Were you using?
Quick Lines, Cold Email Wizards, his product, Quick Lines. I went ahead and got the subscription, and so just to give you a quick background on me. So I'm building a fintech company called Allison.
Right.
And I have to partner with a bank, and I have to partner with another fintech. So I have a Rolodex of about 10,000 emails in LinkedIn. So I've got a cold email all 10,000 of them, and I want to be able to do it at scale so that I can get my campaigns moving without having to individually write personalized icebreaker lines.
Yeah, exactly. To do 10K of those, that's gonna suck pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I know how much it takes me to do 100. So it's like, it's not going to be cost effective for me to just sit and be doing that.
Exactly. No, on a good day, I can do like 20-ish per hour, maybe 25 when I've had when I'm like 4 or 5 espressos in, but it's definitely not easy. So what I'll do, I'll start with, really quick overview of the two different types of lines that we have, what they're for. And then I'll go into some examples of, the no-touch ones, the ones that we'll be discussing today. And then I'll show how to apply those, not just to one email, but to an entire sequence pretty much. So we have the no-touch ones and the classic ones, as you can see right here. So the classic ones are the ones that we started out with, and those are best described as the ones that you would probably write yourself, where you're looking at one person, you're doing some digging, you're trying to find maybe case studies that they did, or maybe podcasts that they've been on, or webinars that they've hosted. And the cool part about that is, just to go back to that like podcast example, when they've been on a podcast and maybe the podcast has the show notes under saying, Brian was here and he talked about fintech and the latest trends in fintech, and he mentioned this or that, then we're actually able to pick up on that. And then the intro would be like, hey, just caught your podcast that you did with Hans. Now you talked about this or that trend in fintech. Really cool. So it's actually able to pull quotes and bits that someone mentioned in podcasts, which is pretty cool. And that's where we're getting a lot of really great responses. Then there's also, it's also based on blogs that maybe they've written, or blogs that they're featured in, maybe latest company news. So that could be funding news, but could be any type of news really. So those are the classic ones, which they're great and they're really in depth and really hyper personalized. But just as with human writers, AI it's not perfect yet. So every now and then there will be a bit of an error. So we've gotten that down to about 5%. So out of 100, 5 will need a little bit of trimming here and there, or maybe there's an awkward word in it. But it could also be that it's talking about something that you and I would understand we shouldn't be talking about. So for example, one user, they send a line to us that they didn't check and they sent it out anyway, which read like, hey, just read It was to a manager of an amusement park, and the line said, "Just read about a tragic incident or accident in one of your roller coasters. That's horrible." That was the line. And then their email was about promoting or help or anything, helping that amusement park with promotion. So obviously that wasn't a great email. You and I would understand, like, hey, listen, we're not going to touch that. But AI doesn't always understand it. So that happens 5 out of 100 times. So what most people do, they generate like 500, and then they have their SDR just skim through those, and they would say, okay, you know what, that one maybe I'll change it a little bit, or that one I'll swap it out with a backup line, because we also provide a backup line. And that's how you use the classic ones. So the in-depth, they're great, but they're not really great for going full autopilot, which brings me to the no-touch ones. So the no-touch ones, they're based on LinkedIn profiles. So for that, we only need a LinkedIn profile. For the classic ones, it's pretty much the more info you can give us, so the more input, like full name, company name, job title, email address, website URL, the more input you give us, the better your output will be. With no touch, is like, hey, listen, we just need a LinkedIn profile. When we have that LinkedIn profile, then we scan that, and then obviously, so we provide up to 12 lines, and I will just show you which exact ones those are. But as you can imagine, depending just on how, let's say, rich or filled out someone's LinkedIn profile is, that will be either closer to 0 or closer to 12. And these are full autopilot. So what you can do is you can just have a look, and you could say, okay, you know what, I really like this one or that one. And you can be 100% certain that those are always going to be, let's say, 7 or 8 out of 10. Well, these are sometimes a 10, and sometimes they need a bit of work. So for no-touch ones, basically all you would need is to upload a CSV, and the no-touch is already selected, so there's not much to do here. So you can just confirm, you map the field where you have the LinkedIn URL, and that's that. Does that make sense so far?
Yep, sorry, I was muted. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, completely.
Beautiful. So here, as you can see, I'm only mapping one column, but whatever you want to be in your output file, you should also map as input. That just makes it easier, where you're going to use that CSV file for your automation tool, right? So you're going to upload that to Mailshake, Lemlist, wherever. So it's just easier to map first name, last name, emails, personal LinkedIn, of course, and then anything else like company name that you want to use. And then that way we also put that in the output file, and you can just download, sync it, and that's it. So that's all you have to do within our platform. And then this is what your result looks like. So just to really quickly go back to here, with these lines, our match rate is also on average really good. So it's a bit higher in, I would say, North America, and then in Europe, and then rest of the world right now. But we're actively working on that. So you can see here, it's a match rate of 100%, which of course depends a little bit just on how strong your LinkedIn profiles are. But in this case, they were great. So we managed to have 100% match rate. Now you see a lot of things here, right? You can see a lot of columns. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly, go through all the columns and show you what they are. And as you can see, we have more columns here, like an intro one and a PS one, and up to 10. So basically, it starts with line and backup line. So what we do is, for all the output that we have, we score it, and then we can say, okay, this one is most likely to be the very best output. So we'll use it as a line, as a backup line. If you're saying, you know what, I like this more, you can swap them out. But the line right here is most likely to be the strongest one. So you can, if you're just looking for an intro, you can just start your email like this: hi, first name, Hans here, line, and that's it. So that's your email. It would look good already, because we score our output, and this most likely be the best one. There's a backup one. What you can do, you can skim through these, you can swap them out with the one maybe you like more. But then there are other ones. So here you have the university observation line, for example. So saw on your profile that you studied at OIU, go Hoosiers, hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's interesting that thousands of spectators descend on Bloomington every year for IU's iconic bicycle race, the Little 500. So that's, based on the university. So saw you attended USF, go Bulls. It's pretty interesting to learn that you can rent textbooks for free there. So that's just talking about the university that they went to, and it will stay either a fun fact or something just interesting to show, like, hey, I know where you went, I know what I'm talking about. Then there's the education one, which is pretty similar. It doesn't really take that fun fact into account. Just says like, hey, see you attended USF, go Bulls. That's a great school. Would love to know how it impacted your direction in life, or whether you went to IU, go Hoosiers. Always interesting how someone's college experience can impact their future. So that's education, alum. So let's jump to a different example. Notice you attended SDSU Go Warriors. I saw the founder of Costco studied there as well. It's really impressive. Then there are clubs, of course. So these are, let's say, these are about their educational background, their educational experience, I suppose. Then we also take dining into account. So if certain universities or colleges or anything, they have like slow food UW, or whether you attend here and there, you enjoy eating at the Halal Shack, which is most likely to be the place that most people go to there. And it talks about that, the local sports teams. So saw in your profile, you're based in San Francisco, you're a big Warriors fan. So these are the ones up till there. Local observation. And as you can see here, that match rate isn't great, which I will touch on later, actually, because that's a good point to notice as well. Then the restaurant ones. So notice in your profile in Chicago, heard a lot of good things about Lou Manetti's. Curious, have you ever tried it? So that's personal transition, volunteer, publication, impressed by publication, human kinetics. I'm sure it took a lot of determination. Congrats. So the point is that these don't always, all of them have to be a 10 out of 10 for you, where you're saying, you know what, I love all of them. Because some people may say that, hey, listen, I'm not going to talk about sports teams because I'm reaching out to CFOs at enterprise companies, and it's just not on behalf of the client, and they're not really going to enjoy me starting off and talking about sports teams. So that's completely fine. But then again, personal transition ones, they're fairly safe. Like, really intrigued by your transition from Leo Burnett to social deviant, or about volunteering, glad to see your volunteer experience with Larda Institute. So what you can do, you can just pick whichever you feel is most appropriate to your audience. You can go with those ones. You can use that as an intro or as a PS or as anything else that you would like. And then, as you can see, we don't have 100% match rate for all of them. So what you could do is you could pick a top 3, for example. And then in this case, you can see, okay, you know what? For these people, I want to go with university, but the ones who don't have university, let me just take the sports ones and I will drop that into university, because I also kind of like the sports ones. And then the ones that are still empty, I'm going to go with my third favorite, which is personal transition. And then that way you have this column filled with lines that you really like and that you feel are strong enough, and those you can use as your first intro. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think this could very well work out for what I'm looking to do. So
right, gotcha. Or you'll just check in also if everyone's still following along. So then I'll just keep going, and then so you have those. You can either merge them and go with your favorite ones. And then what we also do is we suggest like intro and PS, intro, PS up until 1 up until 10. So what you can do with those, and that's why we're here, that's why it's called like the multi-touch webinar, multi-touch personalization, how you can personalize your entire sequence. So you can go with just one intro and that's that. But what also looks really cool and really interesting, and I can actually start copy and pasting some of this. So here we have part of like one of the sequences that we've experimented with. So I've copied now a PS section. So what we can do is we can paste that in here. And then let's go with this one. And we paste that in there. So then your email goes like, hey, John, Hans here, really intrigued by your transition from Leo Burnett to social deviant. Love to learn more about how that influenced your life. Quick unrelated question. You go into your pitch, yada, yada, yada. Thanks, Hans. PS. I know Susan Collins to study at IU too. That's really impressive. So that way you have a super personalized email with a personalized intro, a personalized PS section, and then you have your follow-up email, and you just start talking about something else. So for example, right here, we have the first follow-up. Then, hi, John, time goes fast. I talked about the sample. So here's that sample, quick reminder of what we do. As a next step, we usually do this. Thanks, Hans. PS, notice on your profile you live in Chicago. Heard a lot of good things about this or that. Have you ever tried it? So that email looks super personalized and super custom as well, and doesn't look like something that that you would just that you would have in a sequence pretty much. So that's how you start, by adding personalization to every single step of your sequence. And then you have one step in that you don't personalize. Then that final one, you add some personalization again, like your breakup email, like, hey, it seems now isn't the best time for you to connect. Or maybe the fourth step of your sequence is a LinkedIn message, and then you start your LinkedIn message with another one that you take from here. So that's the idea, where we suggest like multiple intros or multiple PS sections that you can use to write your entire sequence to make that entire sequence look more natural. So that's how we go about that. So when you guys are looking at these emails, do you feel like, hey, this is something I would use for my own campaigns, and that's something I can see will be used for my campaigns?
Yeah, I do. One of the other things, and we don't have it, obviously we only have 15 minutes, but one of the other things is that I'm playing around with is video in my intro email. So I think this will dovetail nicely with that.
Sure. Sure, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So when you have, so do you do like personal? No, you don't have personalized emails, right? Because then, if you're going to do 10,000 personalized emails, that will probably be a bit too much. So yeah, if you have an email in there together with the PS section, I can definitely see that working. So is that like a Loom video, or how do you add a video there?
Yeah, yeah, it's called Yard. There's a I use Mailshake, and it's Mailshake's video partner, but it's just like Loom, where I'm giving my 30-second elevator pitch, and then it creates a GIF. But I think even the personalized first line, even if I'm generating them from your tool, I still think my open to reply rate will still be high, because I'll be able to catch them long enough to where they'll watch the video, right? Then once they watch the video, they'll see what I'm actually doing, and then if they want to talk, they can talk. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that the first thing that comes to mind is deliverability. But then again, like, hey, it's built in Milkshake. I'm sure they have ways of making sure that's really like a low, let's say, friction type of thing. But yeah, if they watch the video, perfect. And then that combined with personalized lines, that's even better. So I can definitely see how that will be a pretty cool sequence. And then actually, I'll get to your question after, Dane, but then just need to review them sometimes, which is one of the reasons why we create these no touch lines, because you would not ever have to review them after you've chosen, like you've been in here and you've seen, okay, what, personal transition I pretty much always like, and personal publication and personal work, these ones are my top three. Then you can just play around with those three without ever having to check them. So there's no reviewing in there, just full autopilot. You check the ones you like and you start using those. Then for the ones where maybe they're empty, you can either use a fallback, or you can start merging columns where you put those columns together, and where there's empty ones, you just drop this one, you drop that one in here, and then you call this one your line one, for example, and then these are always going to be your favorites. So you know what, these ones are going here, and that way you start fitting a column, and that one you use as your line one. So that's how you would use these different line types. Then if you're saying, hey, listen, I only like one or two, and what I want to do is, okay, if this line isn't available, I don't want to use anything else as a backup. I'll just prefer to use nothing, which wouldn't really work for an intro, but for a PS section, it would work, right? So for example, this email says, hey, Hans, you're really intrigued by the transition. This email would work perfectly fine without that PS section. But then again, how you would set up this email is like this, right? So this is what that email would look like. But imagine if this is empty, that would look a bit odd, like you don't have that PS in there. So some platforms, they offer like a fallback option. So you can then add like a more generic PS section. That's something that you could do. But that's not really my favorite. I mean, it definitely works, but one workaround for that is to just say where you would just add the PS bit here already. So to this column, and I think, and I'm just gonna actually experiment with that right here, right now. So if you add this right here, then if you merge those columns, then you should be pretty much good to go. So if you merge these two, so then you have like PS, this and that. So you have PS and then whatever comes after. And then what you can do right here is you can just set it up like this. So then if this column, the PS one, is empty, then this will be completely empty as well, right? But if there's something in the PS column, then it will actually say PS line here. So that's the idea. So that is for if you're saying, okay, I like them, but besides these two, there's nothing else that I like. So I would just prefer to go with no PS if, for example, the personal volunteer one isn't available. So that's the idea there. And that's how you can set up the entire sequence. We give some suggestions. So let me just minimize this. So we give some suggestions as to like intro and which to use for intro one or PS2, PS4. So you can go off of those. But every now and then there's a bit of overlap. So where they maybe talk a bit about the same things, we're still perfecting that bit. So the safest way of going about it, just going, okay, you know what, I prefer the university ones, then this one, then that one. Okay, you have your favorites, fine, then you use those as a merge tag. So in this case, we'll just have like, instead of line, we'll have this. So that's what our email templates will look like. So that's the safest way of going about it, but you can also go with our predetermined PS and intros. That's just completely up to you. So that is pretty much what I was going to talk about today. So very happy to take any questions. I already saw one question from Dane. Asking the previous version of Lyne had a specific configuration for short intros, why the shift? So we released a lot of updates really quickly after each other, and to keep adding that to each and every update, that was a bit too much, we found. So what we did is we checked the average character count. It turns out that the average character count is, let's say, around 170-ish characters, meaning that you can still use them for LinkedIn because it has like a 300 character limit for connection requests, etc., which was the main use case for going with the shorter ones. So you can still use the main ones for LinkedIn and you can use them for email. We might bring back the shorter ones, but for now we're focused on something even more exciting that will release around the end of this year. And who knows, we'll bring back the shorter ones, but for now, so our, let's say, regular ones, they're perfectly suitable for LinkedIn. And then these no-touch ones, especially, they're on average, they're fairly short, so they're very usable or useful for LinkedIn as well. Then any other questions, you can drop them in the chat. You can just unmute and ask me the question, whatever works for you. or not. Maybe it was just super clear, which would be cool as well. And then we can start enjoying our weekend, all of us. Well, unless except for Brian, who still has to work, because your day is just starting, Brian.
That's right. Well, I mean, I even if it was nighttime, I'd still be working. So stuff like this, I love.
Exactly. Oh, look at that. A gift from Zoom. Loving it. But yeah, now we're on the same page there, Brian. So yeah, let me know, like with all those lines that you're looking to generate. We can jump on another call later after next week. And
So can I just go create an account today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's self-serve, so you can create a free account. You get free credits. You can try it out. We're in chat almost 24/7 because we have two team members in the US. I'm here in Europe, and we're the same. We're exactly like you. We're working around the clock pretty much. So whenever you have a question or you want, extra credits or whatever, jump in the chat and we can help you out there.
Yeah, because I want to get started. I want to get this going just because I'm in fundraising mode, so I need to get in front of as many people as possible. So yeah, I want to get this started ASAP.
Sure. Sounds good, definitely. Yeah, then create an account or yeah, just reach out in the chat and we can jump on another call after this and we can see what makes sense in getting you started the quickest. And then about those templates, I mean, yeah, I can share them. They're, I mean, I have them here in this webinar. So yeah, sure, I'll share them. That's no issue at all.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And then Elena, where you send this recording, so it's saving to my hard drive. It's recorded through Zoom, so I'll upload it to YouTube. I'll also uploaded bits and pieces of it to LinkedIn, etc. But once it's live on YouTube, I'll make sure to send an email to each and every attendant or everyone who registered. You're welcome, Elena. I hope I mean, I kept it short, so hopefully you still get to enjoy some Halloween fun. Perhaps some candy. All right. Then anyone else, any questions? Otherwise, we can, well, I wouldn't say cut this one short, but we can stop this. Have a nice weekend, Elena, you as well. Thanks for joining. Thanks for showing up. And then I'll give you guys a couple more seconds for any questions. I'll stop sharing in the meantime, and then you can probably see my face again.